So let's start the analytical stuff for chapter 2. So we're going to do some problems. So first I'm going to introduce how to calculate total productivity, partial productivity, and multi-factor productivity. After that we'll do some problems on from the book, okay? So the total productivity is calculated as output over input. Partial productivity is output over part of the input. Let's say the input consists of labor and materials. So we have labor cost and material cost. So we're going to be looking at output over labor as a partial productivity, output over materials as a partial productivity. So one is a partial productivity of labor, the other one is a partial productivity of materials. A multi-factor productivity takes multiple inputs. So for instance, if I take the output, which is a total output, over the cost of labor and materials, that becomes multi-factor productivity. Let's look at it. So the first thing is I have finished units in this company as 10,000. These are all dollars. So I'm going to make it as dollars. Okay. And I'm going to look at the total finished units is 10,000. Work in process is 2,500. Dividends is 1,000. These are all output. So the first thing in this whole chapter 2 is to understand what is output and what is input. So here the input basically is the labor and materials. I have some labor of $3,000 and materials of $200 that is making this output possible. That's the whole idea. So the total output is calculated. If I click on this B15 and I click on this symbol here, which is the total. So if I click on that, that gives me the total, which is 13,500. Similarly, for the total input, I'm going to click on the sigma, and that gives me 3,200. Okay, so the total output is 13,500. This total input is 3,200. So my total productivity is going to be equal to the total output, which is B15, over the total input, which is going to be B19, and that comes to 4.21. Okay, and I can make this to 2 decimals by clicking on this. See, this one says it decreases the decimal, this one increases the decimal. So if I can click on this, it decreases the decimal. So the total productivity is 4.22. And this is dollars over dollars, so it doesn't have any units basically. Okay. The second one is partial productivity. The partial productivity of labor is going to be equal to my total output over the labor cost, which is 3,000, which is B17, and that comes to 4.5. Now, the multi-factor productivity of labor and materials is going to be equal to the total output over the total of labor and materials, which is 3,200, which is 4.21, and I'm going to make this again to two decimal points. So that's how I calculate the total productivity, partial productivity, and multi-factor productivity. Now let's talk about, in the book you have an objective question 14. So here the units produced for January, February, March, and April for a company is given. The hours per machine is also given. The number of machines is given. So my total output for January is going to be equal to H7, and I can copy and paste to bring it to February is 1800, March is 2800, April is 3000. The input is going to be the hours times number of machines. So the hours is 325 for January times the number of machines is 3, and that comes to 975, and I'm going to copy and paste that. My productivity is going to be equal to the output, which is the units produced, divided by the input, which is number of machines times hours, which is 2.36. And if I copy and paste it, I get 1.8 for February, 1.75 for March, 2.34 for April. Okay, now I can also calculate the average productivity for January, February, March, and April by having the function average of these four numbers, and that comes to 2.06. Practice this, okay? Practice this objective question in the Excel sheet that is provided to you in Blackboard. I'm going to do one more problem. The next problem I'm going to do is the objective question number 17. Here, a dealership is selling deluxe cars and limited cars. Okay, they have sold 4,000 deluxe cars with $8,000 per car and 6,000 limited cars, that is $9,500. Okay, the labor for deluxe and the limited are also given here, dollars per unit and units sold. I can calculate the labor productivity in units of hour, or I can calculate the labor productivity in dollars. The last time when we calculated units per hour, okay, because we had the total, the units produced, the output was the units produced, and the input was the number of the hours by number of machines. Similarly, we are going to do this here. Output in units. What is outputs in units? That is going to be equal to this Q4. The limited car, the output is going to be equal to Q5. The input for the labor hours is going to be equal to, in hours, okay, the input is going to be okay, so the input in labor hours is going to be equal to 20,000, which is Q6, and the input in labor hours for the limited car is going to be equal to Q7. So the productivity of labor productivity, this is a partial productivity, there's only labor here, so basically it's partial in a way. So partial productivity of a deluxe car is going to be equal to output, which is 4,000, divided by the input, which is 20,000, which comes to 0.2. And for the limited car, it is going to be 6,000 divided by 30,000, which is R3, and that comes to 0.2. Okay, so we have these two numbers as our labor productivity, 0.2 for deluxe as well as for the limited car. The labor productivity in dollars, let's look at it. What is the deluxe car output in dollars? The deluxe car output is actually $8,000 per unit times 4,000, which is $32 million. Okay. So the input in dollars is going to be equal to $12 per labor times 20,000 laborers for the deluxe car, and that comes to 240,000. The productivity is going to be output over input, and that comes to 133.3. For the limited car, the dollars per unit is 9,500 times 6,000 units were sold, and that comes to $57 million. The input in labor would be $14 times the 30,000 laborers, and that comes to 420,000. Sorry, that is going to be, the productivity is output over input, and that is going to be equal to 57,000 divided by 420, which is Q19 divided by R19, and that comes to 135.7. Okay, and that is what we have right now. Now let's take a look at it. The labor productivity in units per hour is pretty much the same for deluxe or limited car. So it doesn't have much difference in productivity. The productivity for the labor productivity in dollars, there is a small difference. The productivity is better for the limited car than the deluxe car. Just a little bit, not much, but it is still a little better than the limited car is a little better than the deluxe car. Okay, so that's how you can compare. So this ends chapter 2. Please practice these simple problems using Excel. It's going to get complicated in chapter 3, but for the time being, we're going to make it as simple as possible. So I would like you to go to the Excel and make sure that you understand and do this. Okay, so this is your online class exercise 2 for chapter 2. Okay.